Welcome again to Patricia's Potpourri. And as you know, this episode and all future episodes of Patricia's Potpourri, as well as past episodes, are on YouTube. Today, as usual, I have an exciting but a real special guest for you. My guest today is Mr.
Roberto Reyes.
And Mr. Roberto Reyes is going to inform us about something that we all might have encountered, family members, things that we like to know about, things that we want to know about for ourselves. And our topic today is?
We're going to be talking about dementia, specifically about Alzheimer's.
Okay, stay tuned. Okay, Mr. Roberto, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what connection you have and why you have been summoned to give us information about this particular problem in society?
Okay, it's kind of interesting, actually. It's not what my initial training is in. My background is actually advanced electronics. I was in the United States Navy. I served for 20 years. I was a sonar technician on submarines. And upon retirement, it was the height of the recession. So finding employment was a little difficult. And I got a phone call from my brother-in-law. And he's like, hey, I know it's this organization and they're hiring. And he put me in touch with them. I started working with them, and I initially started working in finding people with dementia that would get lost. It's an unfortunate thing. Unfortunately, 5 out of 9 people with the disease will go missing.
What is dementia?
Dementia is it's a grouping of symptoms that develop from an underlying medical condition. It's one of these things where the condition affects daily life to a point. It affects your cognition, it affects your memory, and in some people it affects their physical movement.
So does everyone get dementia?
No, everyone doesn't get dementia. And it probably leads into another question, like, is it hereditary? About a year ago, I would say no, dementia is not hereditary. But today, we're starting to see that, parents are passing on the biomarkers for the disease to their children. However, because they have the biomarkers doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to develop the disease. It's just like anyone who has cancer. Excuse me. My mom may have had cancer, but it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to have a cancer of any type. It just depends on your lifestyle and whether or not you minimize the risk factors.
Are there any offshoots of dementia? Or are there other words we use for dementia?
I've heard quite a few. Crazy, unfortunately, is one of them, and it has nothing to do with being crazy. Senility, being senile, is a word that was a clinical term at one point, but by today's standards is not. It's no longer senility. We know what it is. It is dementia. We know a lot of things that it is not, and which leads me into what are the types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. It's about 70% of the dementia cases tend to be Alzheimer's, but then you also have Lewy body syndrome, which is what the late Robin Williams had. You have a cardiovascular dementia, which could have been brought on by a stroke or heart attacks. Or it's basically loss of oxygen to the brain, so it's affecting the brain cells. And the list goes up. Frontotemporal dementia. They're just so. Parkinson's disease is a type of dementia. So right there, I've said what, 4 or 5 of them, and there are many, many more.
Wow. Okay. Is there a guarantee is old age linked with dementia?
the the older we are is one of the primary factors to developing the disease. Anyone between 65 and over, you have a 50% chance, and then obviously it increases the older we get. So at 80 years old, you probably have an 80 or 90% chance of having the disease, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it's going to be.
Is there any way to prevent dementia or one of its offsprings? Is there a way?
Unfortunately, no. No, it's unpreventable. It's a progressively degenerative disease, and what that means is as time goes on, it's going to get worse. There's no way to prevent it, and currently the best way to even attempt is changing your lifestyle slightly, because we're starting to see that there are a lot of other risk factors associated with the disease: diabetes, cardiovascular issues, obesity. Those are the big three within the Latino and African American communities. So when you look at this, it's, wow, I'm obese, I also have diabetes, and I have cardiovascular issues as well. I'm going to get dementia. Not necessarily, but you have a higher propensity for the disease just because you meet all these other risk factors.
I want to ask you about caregiving and dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there specific caregivers that will help better at helping people with dementia? Or what care do you think that people with dementia need?
It's very difficult to put your finger on it because, say we both have the disease, your needs and my needs are going to be very, very different. Mm-hmm. The disease does not present itself the same in everyone, even though it's the same disease. Some people will probably be able to walk well. Others may not. Some people may become violent. Others will become very docile. Others will have the ability to speak well, and others, they just withdraw. So it's something where the needs of the person are going to be very individualized to that person. So it's hard to say. There's no cookie cutter. There's no cookie cutter way of saying, oh, this is what we're going to give everybody with dementia. You can't do that.
I heard that there's medication that it doesn't prevent it, but it arrests it. It stops it or maybe it really doesn't stop it. Maybe it just slows it down. And I've heard this for MS and mm-hmm. other different types of diseases that have to do with the brain.
Yes, there are medications, and like you said, they're not a cure. One of the best examples that I can give you is say I have dementia and you're my daughter. A lot of physicians who are, like we like to say, old school, yeah, well, it's not a cure, why even take it? You know what I mean? And the next thing you know, 2 months from now, I don't even know that you're my daughter because it's not a cure, and I'm not going to take the medication. So 2 months from now, I do not know that you are my daughter, as opposed to taking this medication, and 2 years from now, I still know that Patricia is my daughter. You as a caregiver, you as my daughter, what would you like? You want me to know that I'm your dad.
And I understand what you're saying, that this medication may slow down mm-hmm. the process.
Mm-hmm. It'll slow it down. It's not a cure, but it'll slow it down enough where you can still have that interaction with the person. And yes, there will be a loss of the self along the way, but you can still relate to the person. Some of it will help with their mood, but unfortunately, it's not a cure.
You said there was something about mood and dementia. If somebody had a propensity for violence anyway, would dementia exacerbate that?
It could. It could, but it could also arrest it completely. The person would do a complete 180. We've had cases where, not necessarily with violence, but divorced couples. The husband doesn't realize that the person whom he is currently married to is his spouse and wants his ex. And the ex actually prefers him with the dementia because he's a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so much nicer now. He's so much, wow. I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but it really happens.
And it can absolutely change your personality.
It does.
That's what you're telling me.
It does. It can.
I believe.
It can.
It can.
It can.
It can. It can. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to look towards, I know that there's a study at Brown or Columbia University. You know more about that. Could you tell me a little bit about the study in which is happening now? Because it's something that we all need to be involved in.
Yeah, I actually worked with the researcher at Columbia University, and I had a small role. I didn't, but my role was to actually put him in touch with the people whom had the caregivers that had dementia, and it's a longitudinal study to determine what their needs are, what is actually working better for them, and it's a comparative study, and they're actually, because it's an intervention as well, they can intervene. They're actually helping people, putting them in touch with the valuable resources, because everybody most caregivers, and nobody understands my struggle. Nobody understands what I'm going through with this disease. And as a caregiver, you feel that you're the only person who's doing it. Nobody understands me. On a personal note, you asked me earlier what was my tie to the disease. My grandfather had the disease. He passed this past October, and it was something what I work in this business, and I would tell my mom, he has the disease. This is what he has. No, he doesn't. That's what he's always been. He's always been that way. I'm like, no, Mom. He's exhibiting these signals. This is what he has. And it was always a back and forth. So as an adult child, when do I cross that line? And like, Mom, this is what he has, because in Hispanic families, there's a clear line that you don't cross with your elder. Call it respect, call it what you will. But Mom was neglecting herself, and I was seeing that she was also becoming ill. And I'm like, Mom, I need you to take care of yourself because he's going to outlive you. But she was in denial, totally. And she did not want to accept that he had the disease.
Could you please tell me what would be some of the symptoms that I may be able to recognize in someone else?
We usually have a rule.
Or in my, I'm asking you two questions. In someone else and maybe in myself.
Okay. Let's start with yourself first. It'll be very difficult for the person to verbalize that something is wrong with them. They tend to lose that ability depending on which stage of the disease they're in.
One second. Some of us are just plain old stubborn.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, to be able to recognize those things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know that we're off. We know we're off, but we just can't get it out. I just don't feel right. Something isn't right. I can't put my finger on it. Their partner will notice mood swings, and the person may withdraw a little. They may start to feel isolated, maybe even a little depressed. And that's if they have a partner. What if this person is alone? You know what I mean? What if they're a widow or a widower? Whom do they talk to? How do they get out that they have something? They don't know. As far as they know, that's just the way it is. But when you're a caregiver, you're actually caring for someone, you can see the differences. But again, many of us are in denial, and they don't want to accept what they see.
Wow. I place a big chunk of my faith in society. What if I was someone who lived alone and I developed Alzheimer's and I had no family member to step? What does society do for us?
Well, society first has to be able to identify. So that goes back to the second part of that question. They have to be able to identify what those cues are, what those symptoms are that the person has. One of the most common is incessant repetition. What time is it? What time is it? Do you have the time? What time is it? When the question is coming so frequently that it's getting on your nerves, that should be a flag going off in your head. Most people buy a watch. You know what I mean? It's 2 minutes from the last time you asked me. But no, it should be a flag going off in your head that there may be something wrong. And we usually say that there are 10 cues, 10 warning signals. That's just one of them. Another one would be something that the person may have done routinely that they can no longer do. So imagine, if you will, your accountant, the person who prepares your taxes every year. All of a sudden, this person can't balance their checkbook. That's a problem. You have an accountant who can't balance a checkbook. That's a problem. Where we tend to start seeing a lot of these symptoms is in mom. And mom, because mom has always been a homemaker, responsible for the kitchen, responsible for the household, and all of a sudden, mom is making salty cake. Cake isn't supposed to be salty. It's supposed to be sweet. Oh, she had a slip of the mind. She had a senior moment. She grabbed the salt instead of the sugar. It was a slip of the mind. It's okay. We've had people who poison their entire families because they grabbed rat poison, because it comes in the same colored box as salt and sugar. And these are very real cases. So we got to identify those warning signals before it's too late. And I can make the entire list available to you and the production team later.
Yes. Are there facilities just for people with that type of problem that separate them from other type of problems? I mean, for that dementia, Alzheimer, that age problem, is there a facility that would help guide that type of person, that would nurture them rather than them going to a general population?
That's part of what I do. I work for R.A.I.N, and
Excuse me, please tell me what is R.A.I.N?
R.A.I.N is an acronym for Regional Aids for Interim Needs, and they provide many services for the senior community. We are so senior friendly. We advocate for folks. We have a program called R.A.I.N One Stop, and it kind of implies what it is. It's like a one-stop shopping for all. And they help people from something as simple as registering to vote to getting home care. Yeah, I need somebody to help me around the house. So yes, R.A.I.N has its own home care department. Case management services in the event that the person needs more involvement, more assistance. I mean, because as we age, we all need help. I mean, I can no longer do what I used to do when I was 19. I like to think so, but that's
we all do.
that's not the case, So as we age, our needs become more.
I'm a social studies person also,
Sure.
and I realize that in any highly developed society, it's how well we take care of our disabled
Yes.
and our old.
Yes.
And you make me feel very proud right now for saying that America has that in place for us.
We try, but again, society is such a dynamic thing. If we want to apply it now, it's so dynamic. Things change all the time, and a few years ago they could care less. Let's say here in New York City, they could care less whether or not the height of the curb was a certain height or not. Well, what about people who have trouble ambulating? You know what I mean? I can't get my leg up so I can get up on the curb. So R.A.I.N started advocating for seniors, and lo and behold, what happened? I mean, I'm not going to say we were the only organization that did it, but we were out there. And what happened? They started putting ramps on every corner, so that people can get up onto the sidewalk and cross the street safely. Because we shouldn't be a society that takes our seniors and just warehouses them in senior centers, or in homes. It shouldn't be that way. Our seniors are an extremely valuable resource, and it should be cultivated.
Wow. Well, R.A.I.N, could you give me that acronym again, please?
Regional aids for interim needs. Interim meaning not long term, because we want to help you get from point A to point B. You know what I mean?
Well, where could, if someone was to look for R.A.I.N, where can you find a R.A.I.N?
We have 11 locations in the Bronx and one in Washington Heights, up in Inwood.
How about throughout the city?
Well, right now we're primarily focused in the Bronx, but I believe expansion is on the horizon.
I believe that it's going to be really needed because if we would look at statistics, America is aging,
Yes, we are.
okay? And that's something that we really have to look, how are we going to take care of our aging American population?
Yeah, I mean, it's with the advancement of science and medications and treatment options. Obviously, people are living much longer today than they were living 20, 30, 40 years ago. The average age now, of our seniors can go anywhere between 65 to quite often 90, 95, and God bless those that get to that 100 mark.
Yeah, I went to a birthday for a 97-year-old woman who danced in the room when she heard Harry Belafonte, Lord, Don't Stop the Carnival. She danced in the room, which is one of my personal favorites too. But I was so proud. She walks back. Well, she's doing so well. But her family attribute some of her longevity and wellness to the assistance that she's getting every day coming to the center, coming to a R.A.I.N center.
The centers are very, very important because a lot of, again, we don't want to warehouse our seniors, and it's a place where they can go and socialize, be with others, have activities to do. It's an invaluable resource, and unfortunately, it's not taken advantage of. I recall going to one place and talking about Alzheimer's, and people were like, "Oh, that's for old people." Really, that's for old people. I've seen that the onset of the disease can be actually as young as 50, 40, and in extremely rare cases, we've seen some of the pathology in some people as early as their 20s. So I would always ask, who here is old? Nobody raises their hands. Oh, because I'm not old. How dare you? I still feel fit as a fiddle. Again, I'm not 19 anymore.
Wow. Well, it's really been informative having you here today. And, of course, I'm inviting you for the future.
Absolutely.
Okay. But could you tell us how someone may get in touch with R.A.I.N?
Sure, absolutely. For more information on the organization, they can contact me directly. My email is roberto.reyes@raininc.org, or they can contact me at the office at 347-346-9676, extension 316. I hope they put it on the bottom of the screen because I'm not going to remember all those numbers all the time.
Okay. No, we have a director that will do that. Okay. So people need to think about exactly how their caregivers, how they're going to help each other during
Absolutely.
the aging process.
Yes.
And we're all going to get there.
We're all getting there, but what's important to know is that they're not alone. We're here to help you. And again, since each case is so individualized, we have the case managers, we have the staff on hand that's going to work with you for your specific needs. Okay? You shouldn't have to travel this journey alone. You don't have to, and you won't, because we're here to help, and all our services for caregivers are free.
Okay. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Thank
for having me.
And I want you to look into your camera and say anything you would like about exactly what you've been doing. And I hope to have you back to talk more about you, because I know you've had a very, very interesting life, too.
Oh, I've done a few things. Yes,
I
have.
know, I know.
I've done a few things, but you know, I'm here. I'm here for the community, and again, everything that we do is free of cost, and I'm really looking forward to helping you on your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode, and all episodes of Patricia's Potpourri, is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Roberto Reyes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Alzheimer's disease, AD, is the most common form of dementia among older people. Dementia is a brain disorder that seriously affects a person's ability to carry out daily activities. AD begins slowly. It first involves the parts of the brain that control thought, memory and language. People with AD may have trouble remembering things that happened recently or names of people they know. A related problem, mild cognitive impairment, MCI, causes more memory problems than normal for people of the same age. Many, but not all, people with MCI will develop AD.
In AD, over time, symptoms get worse. People may not recognize family members or have trouble speaking, reading or writing. They may forget how to brush their teeth or comb their hair. Later on, they may become anxious or aggressive, or wander away from home. Eventually, they need total care. This can cause great stress for family members who must care for them. AD usually begins after age 60. The risk goes up as you get older. Your risk is also higher if a family member has had the disease. No treatment can stop the disease. However, some drugs may help keep symptoms from getting worse for a limited time.